warriors chasing gold. This game's ours, it's ours to hold. One shot left, one play to run. Make it count under the setting sun. It's game time grind. All or nothing on the line. Push through the pain. Leave it all in the rain. It's game time grind. Victory's ours to find. Victory's ours to find. It's game time grind. Victory's ours to find. Victory's ours to find. Victory's ours to find.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Game Time Grind. I am your host, Ali the Persian. And if you're brand new to these parts, because I know there's some brand new people watching right at this moment, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on the notification bell, because this is going to be one hell of a ride. I got a great show, but without ado, my two partners in crime are in the back, and I felt they needed some more respect, right? So I'm going to play some music as they well deserved. Give a shout out to this
Turn it
guy.
up, turn it up. Tampa in the building. Steve walking like what? New week, new smoke. College crowd on go. Steve talking that talk. Make a mascot fold. Green drip on the fit. Gold shine on the wrist. If you're lining up wrong, he gon' put you on the list. Stay what it takes. That Bulls talk. Watch him run it. USF on the screen.
What's
Squad,
going
they be
on?
bumping. Hard hit,
Jeez.
loud trash.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Little
What is up, sir? It's a brand new Game Time Grind. You know, we're going to finish our analysis of the first round. I cannot wait. But there's that one guy. You know, I think we're missing something. There's that one guy that always seems to be late, right?
It's that time.
This guy.
Mystic in the building. Turn that on. Mystic. Mystic in the building. Turn that up. Mystic.
We live, we violent. Crowd so loud, got the rival silent.
What's going on, Mystic?
Mystic on the field, yeah, we came to crush 'em. Pass, pop, helmet.
And
There we
again,
go. There we go. Oh my goodness. My phone was kind of frozen there for a second. Holy smoke. What's happening? What's happening? How we doing? How we doing?
good, sir. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. Happy to be here. Ready to get into the fun.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of fun to talk about. We're going to continue our first round analysis of possibilities. And for those that are, just watching the show for the first time, go back. Last week, we had an episode. It was basically a first round analysis of the players that could be picked at every position. And we're just working our way down the first round, right? This is not a mock draft, nothing like that. This is more of a, hey, these are the possibilities and players that fit in different teams. And some players we might mention might be duplicated. They may be good for several teams. So we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it. Before we do, though, like I said before, hit the like button, right? Turn on the notification bell. But we got some news, right? There's some news going on, and I kind of feel like we need to talk about it. There was a big pro day today, right? I don't know if you guys saw that. Jermon McCoy, he's one of the top corners in this draft. My opinion, Mansur Delane's the best, but this is the next best thing. Guy had a 19.4% forced incompletion rate, 53.6 passer rating allowed, 9 pass breakups and 4 interceptions, right? That was in the 2024 season. He missed the entire 2025 season, but he definitely put on a show on his pro day. Steve, do you want to talk about his pro day a little bit?
Yeah, apparently there's some video going around about him doing some on-field stuff. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean the man ran a 4.3840, had I believe it was a 38 uh 38-inch vertical. Like I forget what the long jump was. It was something crazy. Like you could see the explosiveness. The
Mhm.
concerns we had, in my opinion, about his knee injury
Yeah.
are abolished. The explosiveness is there. The athleticism is there. The only person who ran a faster 40 than him, I believe, was Keontae Scott from the U, who ran a 4.36, I believe. I'd
Yeah,
have to double
Keontae
check
Scott.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So he was on par with what Mansour Delane ran. This guy might mess up some boards.
Yeah, he might actually. He had a 10-foot 7-inch broad jump, by the way. Just to put that out there. My issue with him was more of the injury. I don't. That's my concern. But the fact that he came out from an ACL injury and definitely ran a 4.38 is very, very impressive. And I don't know if you've seen this guy, but this guy is tall and lengthy too, right? That's something about McCoy that I really like, and it's going to be very interesting. What teams do now. Now it puts in the question marks. We kind of figured what the top 10 was, but now I'm not so sure. Could Jermon McCoy end up within the top 10? That's a question. So we'll definitely get into that. Also, there's some whispers of certain teams speaking about a safety that we have brought up here on the Game Time Grind. Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren recently had Zoom meetings with several teams. One of those teams just so happens to be a team we're very familiar with, the Miami Dolphins. That's kind of interesting, right? He's a player that it's kind of odd. He's one of the most physical safeties, I think, in this draft. I think he's definitely is a day one starter, in my opinion. And his tackling ability and how he attacks players, especially when he goes after running backs. It's very few people can get past him. Probably one of the best open field tacklers, in my opinion, in this draft. And it's very interesting what teams I'm hearing that has talked to him. Chicago is a team that I'm hearing a lot about to watch out for this player. But Miami, that at pick 30, I think that would be awesome. I think it would be a steal. What do you think, Steve?
Well, you know how I feel about McNeil Warren. I mean, he's from my hometown. The
True.
dude's a stud, lengthy, tall, fast, enough for safety.
Hard hitting safety. That's key point. And I didn't mean to kind of give our hand away when it comes to this analysis, which we'll talk more about it. But I just thought it was interesting about some of the teams I've talked to him, Chicago being one of them. I've heard, a lot of the bottom half teams have reached out to him. So it'll be very interesting where he falls. What else?
Only because you know me, you guys know me. Where I have him going has me upset because of, but jealous of my best friend. So we'll see. We'll see where we get to when we get to that.
Definitely, 100%. I'm hearing some news. There's some news that came out that the LSU quarterback transfer that went to Michigan has already decommitted, and he's only been there for maybe like a month. So very interesting what happens there. What else did I see? Some news. Oh, I kind of wanted to talk about two other things. And this will be my Ohio State segment since everyone thinks I'm running an Ohio State podcast. Two things, actually. First off, Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith was asked about postseason transfer portal offers, right? And he mentions that he knew, I know, especially at the end of the game, that a certain program was going to come at me very hard. Not going to say no names, so he's not going to say who it is, which I think I know who it is. I think everybody here knows who it was, but I wasn't going. So I think, is this the nail in the coffin, either of you? I mean, we've heard every time we hear from the Hurricane fans, oh, he's going to come, he's going to transfer, he's leaving Ohio State, and he says he's not going. Is this the nail in the coffin finally? Can we call it a bed that he's not going anywhere?
I think you need to get a hold of them Hurricane fans and ask them if they're VC confident. If you know, you know.
VC confident. I agree with that. If you know,
I am
you know.
VC. I am VC confident that he is not going anywhere. I had no question he wasn't going anywhere.
Definitely. I didn't have any question either. I mean, if you know this kid, and it outside of the money, right? Outside of whatever team was trying, even if it's not the Hurricanes, let's say it's another team, right? He comes across to me as the type of player or athlete that he owns, like whatever he, like, how do I say this? He says he's going to do something, he goes and does it, right? I'm going to make it work here. I picked here. I'm going to sit here and sit in it until it works, right? He doesn't try to, oh, it didn't work here, I got to leave. You know, he doesn't run away from the project. He gets the job done. That's basically what I'm trying to say. He comes across to me, he's that type of athlete. I don't know what you guys think, but I think this kid is a lot more mature than what some people give him credit for. And at every level, when you didn't believe in him, he made sure at the end you were a believer. So, and that started all the way, playing Pop Warner all the way through high school and now into college. He's in his third year. He's going to probably be drafted next year. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to make everybody a believer. That's what I expect from him this season. Any thoughts on that?
No, you're good.
No. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Speaking of Ohio State, and I know this is my Ohio State segment, so I got to keep going with this. Speaking of Ohio State receivers, and I don't like to do this, and I don't really do this usually, but there was some smack talking amongst some beat writers here in South Florida. I don't know if you guys saw that. Omar Kelly was going back and not really back and forth, but made some comments to an Ohio State fan in regards to, now that Brian Hartline is gone, Ohio State ain't going to have no more elite receivers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're coming to USF, baby.
I was setting you up, Steve. Come on, man. You got to roll with it. All right. So here's the reality here's a reality check to that take, right? Number one, there was elite receivers at Ohio State before Brian Hartline. There was elite receivers when Brian Hartline was a player. And there's elite receivers well after Brian Hartline is gone, right? That's the reality. And if you didn't know, they already just reloaded, and one of the best receivers in this past past recruiting class is already shining spring practice. I've heard some amazing things that he's torching the corners at Ohio State already, in just spring practice. He hasn't been there, a couple months, if that. And it's really interesting. Just to give you some thoughts about it, but Chris Henry Jr., right? The son of the late Henry that played for Cincinnati, right? This guy is like getting first team reps already. He's way ahead of the game. It's going to be a very exciting season seeing him on one side and Jeremiah Smith on the other. So that's really interesting. Another take, I cannot remember the receiver's first name, but his last name is Parker, the receiver that transferred from LSU to Ohio State. from what I understand, he's already well ahead and is like really starting to be really good as well. As well as the new wide receivers coach. He made some comments that it's unbelievable at Ohio State. He has, he was giving props to the facilities, the players, anything and everything he could ever imagine. He has disposal. And he says the room is just loaded. It's unbelievable. So I found that to be very interesting. Some interesting thoughts. But the fact that someone says that Ohio State is not going to have any more elite receivers, or they don't, now that Brian Hartline's gone, I'm sorry. All we did is this. Oh, we lost some. We just recoup and we move with it. That's basically what's going to happen. So,
I mean, to be fair, Chris Henry did contempt going somewhere else because Hartline left. So I don't think it's ultimately going to affect you guys. To be fair, I agree. I'm just saying that maybe one or two guys might, head a little south of the Ohio border.
Let's be fair. You want to be fair, okay? I understand that it looked like he thought about it in the media, but did you see what his story was? What his excuse was? After he decided to still go to Ohio State, did you see what he said?
I don't remember the whole statement, but I do remember he said that him and his parents had to take a pause moment when the announcement that Hartline left.
That's the key word. His parents. From my understanding, and this is what it's been reported that he has said, is that I think it was his mom and someone else wanted him to rethink it just to make sure it was the best option. But he didn't really want to. He still wanted to come. So, look, if they have to pause just to be sure, then so be it. But I had faith that he was going to come no matter what. And that's what ended up happening. In fact, everybody that said they were taking a pause ended up coming to Ohio State anyways. Do you understand? It didn't really make a difference, because the reality is, if you're leaving because some wide receiver coach is gone, why are you there for the wide receiver coach? You know they're going to bring in NFL talented receivers no matter what. Or I'm sorry, NFL talented receiver coaches no matter what. Look at all the coaches Ohio State hires. Look at Matt Patricia, right? Look at some of, they just hired the former Steelers linebackers coach, to give you an example. They're bringing in NFL talented coaches at a very high level, right? Whoever they bring in is going to be at a very high level and make sure that you're in the best option to be able to perform. And that's what they've done year in and year out. So if you're going to tell me you're going to leave because of a wide receivers coach or co-coordinator, because that's really what he was, then fine, you left because of that, right? But the reality for me, is okay, he's gone, but are you really there for that coach? Or are you there, because of the program and the head coach? Because that's really who you're playing for. You're playing for the program and the head coach, not the wide receivers coach or the co-coordinator. Just going to point that out.
Hey, what's up,
Those are my
dog?
thoughts.
I'll tell you what, man. Oh, I'm just kidding.
So I just wanted to bring those points, but I see what Steve is saying. He's right, but it can go both ways as well. There was something else I saw in the news.
I do have a small piece of news that could
Go ahead, go for it. Shoot. Yeah, definitely.
So obviously there's a lot of pro days going on, and a certain Clemson pro day went a little sideways. Avion Terrell pulled a hamstring muscle. We don't know how bad it is, but he was warming up to do his run, and pop goes the weasel. We don't know if it's torn. They don't know if it's a strain yet, but he hurt his hamstring. So that'll be something just to monitor, because that doesn't just affect your hamstring. That's your groin. That's your calf. That's your glute. It's all attached. So just a fair warning that for those, this could affect boards. This could affect the first round. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr.
No, I'll just say cue the stock downtrend music. You know,
Knock down. I don't know if I have any. Here,
that's though. It sucks. Great prospects, but hey, we'll take it. See, there you go.
my stock down music. Oh man, yeah, that's really interesting. I feel for the kid. I hope he ends up getting drafted where he was expected to. Still, I hope it doesn't affect him too much. But you're right. Hamstring can lead to several other areas of the body that can be injured. So that is true, like you said, the groin. It's just sad, man. You're at a point where you're gonna finally get to that level and show everybody what you got to get to, the NFL and be drafted, and something like this happens, right?
Well, especially after you sat out of the combine too.
Yeah, you don't have a way to unless he had some private workouts or something. But even then, after something like this, you probably don't want to work out at all. Here's something interesting I want to bring up as well, real quick. Let me share my screen. So I found this to be very interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this, but most wins in the BCS CFP era, Ohio State, number one, Alabama, and then Georgia, right? We've seen Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia at almost every other college football, playoffs, and in addition to the BCS era. Then you have teams like Boise State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Clemson, LSU, Texas, and then USC. I want to say for me, the surprising one is number 4. Boise State really has more wins than Oklahoma or even USC. That's kind of strange to me. I don't know. It just looks strange. But go ahead. What do you think?
I remember. I think if we look up the history, obviously recent, they had an insanely long stretch of home dominance in Boise, where they had won so many home games straight or something, if I remember right. Because, yeah, it was, you didn't really want to play at the blue field. I remember that. I do remember that. I wouldn't have expected them at number 4. No, sir. But I do know there were some stretches where, yeah, you didn't want to go play at Boise, that's for sure.
I mean, how long? I don't know. I didn't look this up in advance, but how long has Boise even been playing in the college football era at all? I mean, how long they've been around? I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb question. I don't know. Just for me, I've seen USC and Oklahoma, and obviously the top 3 been there forever. And then it seems like more recently Clemson was there for several years as well. LSU and Texas more recently, but LSU, I don't know, but they want to get with Joe Burrow. Okay, I give them that 1 year.
See, right here. Boise State from 2001 to 2011 had a 65-game regular season win streak at home.
Wow, that's crazy. All right. I guess when you're playing all those teams like that, I guess it doesn't. It's not very hard to do. I guess. What are you guys thinking about this top 10 most wins in BCS college football playoff era? What do you guys think? Was there any other surprises?
Honestly, I'd say for the most part, it all kind of makes sense to me. I mean, you see, Alabama with, Nick Saban, no surprise they're up there in the top 3, Georgia, things like that. Oklahoma did have their runs. I remember that. I mean, I guess USC and Texas, maybe not being higher on the list, considering it goes all the way back to 98, but again, maybe I'm just not thinking about it right. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, the big surprise to me was Boise State. Go ahead, Steve.
So does the 2018 national championship game be the game that's overtaken Georgia right now?
Say that again. What game?
I was being funny. Does the 2018 national championship game where a certain Samoan walked into the game halfway through count towards this number for their one game over Georgia?
Yeah,
You dirty dog.
that probably is the game. I'm not gonna lie. That probably is the game because we saw the Alabama Georgia SEC championship game this year. Dude, Georgia spanked them, dude, so badly too. It was bad. So that is very interesting. Um, yeah, very, very interesting. I'm just kind of surprised. USC's here at number 10, and I just thought they had more wins than even Texas did. Because I want to say it was like when they had Reggie Bush, I want to say they won it like 2 years in a row, didn't they? Or was it just 1 year that they really
I don't
won?
know.
I'm
I
pretty
don't know
sure they
about
were
that,
better
but
2 years, but I think the second year was that's when Vince Young won it.
Oh, with Texas.
Yep.
Texas did win it. I forgot about Vince Young. Yep, that's right.
I don't know about that. But this comment, "Where's Florida?" That's kind of funny.
Who
I
said
ain't
that?
gonna lie. Somebody in the chat, "Where's Florida?"
Oh
Where's
my
Monjo?
god.
Savage.
Who's their quarterback?
Was DJ Lagway?
Who?
Was.
I don't know who that is.
I mean, he ain't there now. He's at Boise, right?
Baylor.
Baylor. He went to Baylor.
Or Baylor. That's right, Baylor.
Yeah, my question is, who's that team that beat Boise? Because I know a team in here in Florida that beat Boise.
I want to be nice with this answer. No, fuck that. Spaghetti. It's
South
okay.
Florida. Go ahead.
I've already said it, and I said it on here, and I stand on it. Now that Heartline is doing what he's doing, and spring practice has been looking really good.
Yeah.
If any one of these three quarterbacks we brought in, we're winning our conference, and that automatically gets us into the playoffs next year. Watch out, Navy.
Watch out. Ooh, very interesting. Cannot wait to see what they do. So that'll be very, very cool. All right. Well, let's get on with the show. If you're just joining us, make sure you hit the like button, turn on the notification bell. We're going to get into this. It's going to be really interesting. If you watched the last show, we stopped at 16, the Jets, right? That's what we talked about. The next pick is the Detroit Lions. So we are going to talk about Detroit. And let's talk about Detroit real quick. So Detroit added Isaiah Pacheco, Cade Mays, and Teddy Bridgewater this offseason, while losing David Montgomery, Alex Anzalone, and Khalif Raymond. They really like Anzalone, or however you say his name, they let him go. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went to Tampa.
Damn, I actually liked him too. He was a very interesting player. Their draft needs are offensive tackle, edge, linebacker depth, defensive back depth, and running back support. Their projected first round, for me, who I think fits this perfectly with what they want to do, especially with what they announced with Sewell. They're going to finally move him to left tackle. It has to be an offensive tackle. They need a right tackle bad. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be, for me, Monroe Freeling. That's who I think is going to be the guy. There's some other maybes possibilities, but I don't want to take anybody's thunder. So who wants to go? Who wants to go next?
I'm totally going to jump out.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna jump out here, and I'm not really fond of the guy. But I would totally agree with your take. It makes sense. That's also a Dan Campbell thing. I mean, we got to remember when Dan Campbell and them first got there, he went heavy, rebuilt that line. He made sure things were ready to go. He wholeheartedly believes in them trenches. The guy that I think, because I think Freeland might be gone before here. I got Caden Proctor going to Detroit.
Caden Proctor, very interesting. What about you, Steve?
So I don't think I heard you mention it. Part of the reason that they're up and needing a tackle is the leaving of Taylor Decker. They had released him. I don't remember if it was the end of his contract or if they straight up released him. I think it was the end of his contract. So I agree with you. I think Monroe Freeling makes a lot of sense here. He's a guy I actually contended for the Dolphins at 11. So him going down this far on the list, I think is a great spot for him. Caden Proctor was also one of the guys that I like here. But I also think, just because I'm the last to go here, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to find a partner for their edge rusher. He's been dealing with some injuries this year, the last couple years, even though he's still dominant, Hutchinson, when he's on the field. But the injuries, I think, are starting to creep up. I would not be surprised if they take a stab at a defensive end like Akeem Mesidor or TJ Parker.
Yeah, I really like Zion Young for Detroit too. That's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. Overall, I think I do expect them to draft someone in the trenches. Let it be offense or defense. I think that's really where they're going to end up biting here. But I do think a tackle definitely is the route that I think they should go. That being said, the next team is Minnesota. In Minnesota added Kyle Murray at quarterback, James Pierre, while losing Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave and Jalen Naylor. Their draft needs are defensive tackle, safety, wide receiver, center, and quarterback room clarity, basically for long term. Because I don't think Kyle Murray is really their long term solution. Do you want me to go first on who I think they're taking, or do you guys want to take a stab at it first?
Go ahead. I'm cool with it. You just keep the rotation going.
Well, I think you guys are going to like this player. Safety Dylan Thieneman. The big rumor cloud here is ripple effect, adding Murray and what that means for the rest of the quarterback room. So basically, for me, you kind of put a Band-Aid in the quarterback room. You focus on the defense, and I would go safety. They also lost Javon Hargrave, so there's room that they need a safety bad in that room, I think. In addition, you could look at defensive tackle also here. There's a couple that could be in this area. There's Kane McDonald as well as some others. I don't know. I think Dylan Thieneman is a good fit here. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Mr.
It totally makes sense. It really does. From the Minnesota Vikings standpoint, where they're at, they've always had good safety play. We talked behind the scenes about an individual who's a hard-hitting individual and very physical, and they've also always been known to kind of have a very physical safety as well. I think maybe one of those under-the-radar guys you look for is that Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Excuse me there. I think that is something interesting to watch too. Obviously, that's an under-the-radar, pick. There potentially could be other guys on the board, but isn't that still a Brian Flores-led defense?
Yeah, yes, that is true.
Doesn't he love his physical guys? Go ahead, Steve.
So I'm going to resign from the show because Ollie and I apparently have one brain. This screams Dylan Thieneman. You brought up Brian Flores, and this is the exact reason why I chose who I chose. What did Brian Flores love to do in Miami? Blitz Javon Holland. Blitz God, what's his name?
Jones?
I'm sorry?
Was it Brandon Jones?
Yeah, Brandon Jones. He loves blitzing safeties. Dylan Thieneman at 4.3 speed, blitzing from the secondary. Also, the ability to cover as a switch corner. He fits what they do. But because Ollie did choose him, I'm going to go to my backup, who, even though I do think Thieneman is their best choice, I think Keontae Scott playing slot for them, like we had with um, uh, uh, Nick and Cater, I think fits that style defense too, and is something they could blitz with as well with his speed. Like the a speed safety just fits so well in that defense. It just screams a need for them.
Yeah, definitely. Can I play devil's advocate real quick? If they don't go safety, I have a. It's not necessarily it's one of their needs, but I in a way that you could say, well, don't they have enough of those over there? If they go receiver, what do you think about Denzel Boston here?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I like Denzel Boston, but I also like Omar Cooper here too.
That's a good one too. I didn't think about Omar Cooper, but Denzel Boston definitely that would be for me. That would be an interesting pick. All right, who is next? The next team is the Panthers. So let me read you guys a little snippet of the Panthers and what they got going on. The Carolina Panthers added Jalen Phillips. That was the big edge pickup. Devin Lloyd and Rasheed Walker, while losing Cade Mays and Yosh Nijman. Is that how you say his last name? Nijman. Their draft needs are center, offensive line depth, tight end, corner depth, and more support around Bryce Young. Now, supported around Bryce Young, there's a couple different players that come to mind here. You could go tight end. You could go offensive lineman. For me, I'm looking at two different picks for the Panthers. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Kenyon Sadiq makes a lot of sense here. It just does. I think Kenyon Sadiq is a type of tight end that they're looking for, that dynamic player to have next to Bryce Young with extreme athletic ability. But if you want to address the offensive linemen, you got a couple of those Iowa boys. In fact, that Iowa center rings a bell. I don't know if he's first round talent though. So I mean, there's a couple different options you have here. Go ahead. Who wants to go next? Because I don't want to take anyone else's thunder.
You know, I think I might accidentally steal some thunder here. We'll see. Hopefully not. You know, supporting Bryce Young is the thing. What, this was a playoff team that was a wild card exit, right? So continuing to build that trench, allowing your quarterback to do the things that he needs to do, get the ball to his weapons. I've been told this is probably the best center in the draft, arguably with, the guy that I like. But I'm thinking this is a Jake Slaughter to the Panthers, unless there's if one of these other wide receivers, this was my other thing, it was either best center to help your quarterback or one of those top wide receivers. If somehow one of those guys falls down in here, I think it makes sense to pair him, or to your point, Ollie, Sadiq, makes sense to pair them with McMillan to give them more weapons within that offense. But again, offensive line really makes sense to me,
Yeah, definitely. I was also go ahead, Steve. Let Steve go first. I almost took some of his thunder, possibly. Go ahead.
I doubt it. I reevaluated after some of the things that happened during the last week in the draft scenarios. They went and got so Carolina actually went and spent a lot, and I don't want to say a lot in free agency, but they went and addressed their tackle situation. They went and got Rasheed Walker from the Packers, and they also still got Taylor Moton and Akeem Aquanu. So their tackle situation's pretty good. They still got Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Luke Fortner being like the question, but they still got Chandler Zavila. I think their issues on offensive line are something that it would be addressed in later rounds. I do like Jake Slaughter for them, just not here. I think first round for Jake Slaughter, I think is kind of a reach. I have them taking, if he were to fall, based on my reassertion, I had them taking two different wide receivers, either Cornell Tate if he falls, to pair, because the wide receiver they got from, I believe it was North Carolina, Xavier Legette, has not lived up to what they thought he was going to be. And then they have the receiver that they got last year, McMillan, right? So he's lived up to what they think they were looking for, but I still think they're looking for another weapon. I like the tight end idea, but they also still have Tommy Trimble and Jatavian Sanders that they took 2 years ago. So I like Cornell Tate, or I like where'd it go? Omar Cooper here a lot. I think both of those fit kind of what they're looking for the explosive receiver. The more I'm watching Omar Cooper, the more he kind of reminds me of Jarvis Landry and the way he attacks. So you add that spunky slot who can play boundary to that wide receiver room with Tet, who's basically just Mike Evans, and then a decent wide receiver in Xavier Legette, excuse me. I think that screams a perfect situation for their quarterback.
It's definitely true. Look, I think we're on the right track. I think it is going to be an offensive weapon for Bryce Young. It makes sense here. Being the fact who their head coach is, he's offensive minded. And I think he's going to do something to support his QB when it comes to weapons. Kenny and Sadiq makes a lot of sense because I know they're looking for that athletic style type of tight end, and he would be a sure fit kind of guy. Omar Cooper, definitely a good point. Even other players that we've already mentioned could very well go here as well. Carnell Tate, though, that's an interesting name. I do expect Carnell Tate to go a little bit higher than where we're at right now with the Panthers. But if he falls, then yeah, I could see them picking him up for sure. Who is next? Did anybody else have any other takes on the Panthers before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. The Dallas Cowboys are next on the board. What?
Juicy take. Oh.
It's okay. What can I say about the Dallas Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys, they have, I'm sorry, let me move up a little bit to where I wanted to read who they brought in so everybody could see. Just bear with me 1 second. Where are we? Where are my notes? Here they are. Dallas added Rashawn Gary, Jalen Thompson, and Kobe Durant while losing Osa Odizua. I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. And Jalen Tolbert to the Miami Dolphins. Their draft needs are corner, linebacker, edge depth, defensive tackle depth, and receiver help. Depending on what they do with their first pick, because I know they picked 12 also in addition to pick 20. If they go corner, I could very well see them going wide receiver or even linebacker here is a possibility. For me, there's two names that kind of ring the bell. This was my notes prior to what happened today at a certain pro day. But I did originally think that Jermon McCoy could fall here. I thought he could fall here possibly. Now I don't think so. I think Jermon McCoy is going to be picked sooner than 20 for sure. And the other name that I thought could be a fit, Edge Kendrick Folk. who I think fits what Dallas wants to do, and that would be an interesting name. What do you guys think?
So I absolutely was going to say, yeah, I have Jermod McCoy going to them at 12, and I think it makes sense like an Anthony Hill or something here at this point to continue to reinforce that defense. I heard them say they really want to make sure this defense is shored up, is I think the last thing I read good old Jerry say. So I think it makes sense. Double down, get 2 starters to really help, replace some production that they let, kind of go. If you know, you know.
Yeah. No. What do you think, Steve?
So I like both of those. I took McCoy also at 12. I think I think he up and even past, like, I get it. Like, it's hard for me now that I've seen the pro day for the Dolphins to pass on him, but I do think 12 is a great spot for him to be taken by Dallas. And then Dallas swings back around and takes an edge. I think it's a different edge. I think we see the first true reach, in my opinion, if not the second, based on what the Jets do at 16. I think Dallas takes Akeem Mesidor here.
Akeem Mesidor, that's an interesting name. Definitely a player to watch. Another player I thought of, maybe Georgia linebacker CJ Allen is someone that could go here too. Definitely gives him the range and physical linebacker that they're looking for. But, and this is the big but, right? There's been some talks that Dallas are hoping that somehow that a certain Ohio State linebacker could fall to them, Sonny Styles. What do you think of Sonny Styles at 12? Since we're talking about Dallas.
I think if the Dolphins let him go to Dallas, I'm going to be sending hate mail. Oh, wait.
Well, there are some people in the Dolphins community that today started an uproar on the Twitter Spaces, talking about how they don't really think that Sonny Styles is all that, and that he's going to go in the 20s or somewhere between 17 and 20. First of all, I don't know how he gets out of the top 10 personally, but just overall, let's say he does fall to Dallas at 12, right? Then you're looking at guys like CJ Hood, among other corners that could be here at 20. Or do you think they go linebacker and still don't address the corner position if they go linebacker at 12? Do they double up on linebacker? Basically, is what I'm asking.
You know what? What about a Zion Young?
Zion Young is somebody that could be there, definitely. I like Kendrick Falk a little bit better for them, but that's definitely a name to watch.
I mean, do you mean like double up edge and linebacker? I don't see them taking 2 linebackers unless
Yeah,
you're like,
you're probably right. They probably won't take 2 linebackers, but it was just a thought. But taking a linebacker like Sonny Styles and then following it up with edge, let's say Kendrick Falk's there, or let's say Zion Young is there. Both those guys would fit the bill.
I do have one monkey wrench just because of how Dallas likes to run things. And this will probably swing back around once we get to a certain division rival of the Dolphins later. Dallas loves their tight ends. Could you imagine adding Kenyon Sadiq to Terrence Ferguson? I think it's not Terrence Ferguson. One of the Fergusons. I forget which one it is that's there. There's like a million of them in the league. And those 2 wide receivers.
Is it like Jake Ferguson or something?
Yeah, Jake Ferguson. Thank you. Jake Ferguson, Kenyon Sadiq, and those 2 wide receivers. You imagine that weaponry.
Let's actually talk about that for a little bit, because that is a monkey wrench. But I'm going to throw a little bit more monkey wrench into the monkey wrench. So you're right. Having a Kenyon Sadiq there, that would be amazing. That would be unlike any other tight end, I would argue, that Dallas normally has. If you look at their historically, what they've had Jake Ferguson's, they've had the tight end, the one that plays for the Texans now. I can't think of his name, but they're usually like great blocking, good catching white boys that they have. That's the type of tight end. I hate to say that, but that's the type of tight end that they generally run with. Kendron Sadiq would be an athletic freak, if you want to call it that, in comparison, right? So you're looking at the different possibilities, having him on the outside playing wide receiver. You could throw him in the slot. You could put him at the line. There's so many different things. It would be a juggernaut. My question is, looking at historically what Dallas drafts and the type, the mold that they draft at, they draft more guys that look like Sam Roush, to give you an example. Does that make sense? Like that style of a tight end.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of what I think. That's why I can't trust them to take a Sadiq. But if they fall and they do rock and roll, Dallas will be something else. It'll be different. It'll be very refreshing to see. But I don't think Sadiq gets past the Panthers, though. I think if he's there at Panthers, they take him. That's what I think.
Based on your comment, I do think if we're going based on that comment, Jake Gallday, the linebacker, makes a lot of sense here too.
Oh, okay. All right. And I just to clarify, because I may have said that in a way that people might take that wrong. I wasn't trying to make it anything about, being.
No, it's the style of tight end.
Yes, they like these tall, bulky kind of guys that look like they should be offensive tackles, but they're more of a tight end. They're athletic enough to be a tight end. That's what they like.
Dalton Schultz is not that big. He was more of a.
That's what I was thinking of. Dalton Schultz.
He was more of a pass catching tight end. I think he's 6'3", like 250, 240. If I remember correctly, that might be wrong, but I don't remember him being that big.
Let me check. The other name I was thinking of was Jason Witten. Let me.
Yeah, okay, so he's 6'5", 242. So he's on the taller end. I thought he was.
Yeah, Jason Witten was 6'6", to give you an example.
Yes.
Who was their tight end before Jason Witten? Because they had Dalton Schultz, they had Jake Ferguson roughly around the same time, and then prior to that they had Jason Witten. It was a guy they had before Jason Witten, though, I thought.
Well, I mean, they had plenty of tight ends before him, but off the top of my head, I couldn't remember. Let's see.
And for Cowboys.
Damn, he was with Dallas. Jeez, I forgot how long he was with Dallas. 14 years as a tight end with Dallas.
And the person I was thinking of was Jay Novacek. Jay Novacek was the primary Dallas Cowboys starting tight end before Jason Witten during the entire 90s, the 99 to 95. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. 5 Pro Bowls and 3 Super Bowls. Interesting. All right. Who is next? Anybody else for Dallas before we move on?
I'm good.
All right. So the next team we're going to is going to be the Steelers. I have a hot take here. But before I talk about this hot take,
I might have one too.
Let's actually talk about what the Steelers have done recently. The Pittsburgh Steelers, let's take a look here. Pittsburgh Steelers added Michael Pittman Jr., Jamal Dean, and Rico Dowdle, while losing Kenneth Gainwell, Calvin Austin III, and Isaac Samalo. Their draft needs are quarterback, tackle, interior line depth, and defensive line help, as well as corner depth. Is this where we finally see Taylen Green go? Taylen Green is a name to watch. Another name to watch could be if for whatever reason, not saying it's going to happen, because I think some team is going to go up and get this guy in the top 15. But let's say a Ty Simpson falls here. They could go after him for all we know. Or are they really going to overdraft their the Pennsylvania boy Drew Aller? Does Drew Aller get drafted here? These are questions I have. I think it could be a Taylor Green. He's athletic enough to be a first rounder, but is still a project. That could possibly happen. If they don't go quarterback, ultimately, I think they go offensive lineman, though. And I like Caden Proctor here, Mystic. That's what I think is going to happen. What do you guys think?
Juicy. I was actually just thinking about it. And yeah, Caden, that's a good one. I think the hot take is I think Ty Simpson to the Steelers here. But I think if, say he's not there and they're waiting until, second, third round to get their guy. You guys had him, I think a couple teams prior to, but I think the Dylan Thieneman, I think, makes sense for Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Steve?
So I made a hot take at the end of the last show, and I said it because I do believe, and the Jets went in immediately. I don't know if anybody saw that. They immediately had a long conversation reportedly with Ty Simpson. I know we haven't done one yet, but if there's one that I think could happen, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers move from this spot up to 16 from the Jets to take Ty Simpson.
Hot take. I can see that happening. I look, the reason I think quarterback is going to be taken ultimately is because you look at it. Who's their quarterback now? Right? Is Aaron Rodgers there? Is he not? Is he staying one more year? Is he not? They have Will Howard, right? The unproven guy that they drafted last season. They don't know what they have in him because he had to have like some type of hand surgery or some kind. Supposedly he's okay. It was just something they had to clean up. And they also have Mason, what's his name? Mason Murphy or whatever his name is. Mason Rudolph is who they have, right? So you look at that. They don't really have a guy for the future yet figured out. Let's say Aaron Rodgers plays this season and they don't really get anywhere, right? Or they get just further enough just to be outside of bidding for one of these top guys, right? And they don't believe in Mason Rudolph, and they don't believe in Will Howard, then you're out of the running, right? You can't afford that. But if you draft a guy that could possibly be the guy now, let's say he's arguably the second best quarterback in this draft. If you draft him now, then you don't have to worry and rely on the quarterbacks that could be for next season. You can roll with what you got and then draft a different, be more worried about drafting a different position next season. So there's some different thoughts to think of what they could do here. But I do think they get a quarterback. Could be Ty Simpson. It could be Taylor Green. Maybe they trade down and get Taylor Green from here. That's a possibility too.
So just to finish my thought process too, part of the reason I think they move up for quarterback, Will Howard was not drafted by this head coach. He was drafted under the last head coach, the last regime. They now have Dallas's old head coach there. Now, he developed Dallas's quarterback from, I believe, the fourth round, right? Dak Prescott was a third or fourth rounder. I believe he was a fourth rounder.
Mm-hmm.
So he could decide to develop, right? However, I think part of why, just to, if anything else, to finally appease the Steelers fan base, they have been begging for a quarterback. They have been, like, anytime you hear them talk, they are begging for a quarterback. I think the Jets are still looking to 2027. I think they could get a decent package for this deal. They move back, and here I have the Jets taking linebacker Jake Galladay, and then I have, like I said, the the transverse of Dallas going forward to 16, taking Ty Simpson there. So the Jets continue to bolster because they also lost a linebacker. Even though they brought in a veteran, I do think that is still something they need to address. With a young player to develop under Demario Davis and replace. I always get, is it Quincy Williams or Quinnen Williams? It's one of the two. One of the two brothers was their linebacker, and they lost him. So um, I think it fits both
Quincy's the linebacker.
in their needs.
What was that mistake you cut out?
Sorry, I'm just saying Quincy's the linebacker. Quinn is DT.
Thank you.
So Quincy. All right. Very interesting. The next team, the Chargers. The Chargers added Keenan Mitchell and Tyler Biadasz while losing Odafe Owe and Zion Johnson. Their draft needs are edge, defensive line depth, running back rotation, and secondary help. The projected first-round pick is not going to tell you what my projected first-round pick is yet, because I want to talk about it for a moment. Last season, we watched the Chargers get decimated at the offensive line. I want to say they were on their second or third string of offensive linemen at one point, and still be able to still operate in a way. But I'm kind of go back and forth with it. I do know that they do need edge help really bad, right? So there's that option, but is offensive lineman more needed here than what I stated off? Like I think it, and the reason I say that is you look who you drafted last season. You drafted Omar Hampton, right? And you could tell with the lack of offensive line help how it went. You were really high at one point with Omar Hampton and what you had going on, and then week after week it started getting worse and worse. Is that really ultimately what they need? Or do coaches like the Harbaughs do what Harbaughs do best, and they draft defensive players very well? A guy that I like here is Cassius Howell, the edge player. However, it could go offensive lineman. And who's going to be left here at this point at offensive line? That's a big question. So that can come into play at this, but I have a feeling they're not going to go with the grain. They're going to go with whatever the best edge they can find, and I think that guy is Howell. What do you guys think?
I think you're spot on. I do. I think, but part of me says it wouldn't surprise me if they found a way to get another weapon or another threat. It also wouldn't surprise me if he fell, if they went and picked up the guard out of Penn State, Vega. You continue to shore up that line. We know the offensive scheme that's there now. We know what Mike McDaniel's capable of. Without a quarterback to stay upright with those weapons, it's gonna be fireworks in Los Angeles. That's all I know.
Interesting. Hot take. I have a hot take for the end. I'll let Steve go first. My bad. Go ahead, Steve.
You're good, and we lost Mystic. So they added Tyler Biadasz. They added a fullback in Alec Ingold. They added an offensive guard in Cole Strange, who I think actually has a chance to start for them. That we basically swapped guards. They gave Miami got what's his name? Sawyer, and they got Cole Strange. So we kind of swapped guards. I actually do like them maybe going for a guard here if Lomu's still here. They could take Jennings Dunker here. Those are also very great options. I do believe, however, they are going to go defense. I do think edge is a need for them. I think Kendrick Falk fits them very well, and the way that they attack from all angles. I think he's a very good piece. Yeah, I like Kendrick Folk here for the Chargers.
You know, I
And
do have another interesting little piece I want to throw in here. A wild card, if you will. It wouldn't,
I have a wild card.
I guess, at this point. How about Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington? I think that would be an interesting one. Give him a larger framed guy, you know. You do have some quick speed there. Just give him another big body dude with some really good ball skills, you know.
That's definitely an interesting take, and I could see them doing something like that. But they've done that in the past. I just don't know how well it would work out for them. But I will say this. I do expect Denzel Boston to actually be gone to the Rams before this point. That's who I took in last week's episode. But that is an interesting take. I have a more wilder take than that. There's a certain defensive tackle that a certain fan base in this chat has been banging the table for, asking about where the Florida boys are. What if they took a wild card overreach player such as Caleb Banks out of Florida?
That'd be crazy.
That would be crazy, but it is something that they do need. They do need trench help on the defensive side and the offensive side, in my opinion. But I think it's going to come on the defensive side. And I do like who I suggested, but there's some other options there, and he's one of them. Any other final thoughts on the Chargers?
I have one wild card, and this would be a reach, and I understand it might be a crazy reach, but there is a wide receiver type, in my opinion, is missing from this offense. What is something that Mike McDaniel has preached since the day we met him? Yak kills. Speed kills. Could you imagine if they draft Zachariah Branch, 4.3 speed out of Georgia, pairing him across the field from Quentin Johnston and Lad McConkey?
That's true. But Conception also makes sense here too, because he's that type of player that you could put him as a rusher, as a receiver in the slot, all over the place. And you know Mike McDaniel loves those types of guys. I actually forgot Mike McDaniel was there for a hot minute. Thank you for reminding me. That makes complete sense. I don't want to say that's even wild take. That's a possibility. That's definitely a possibility.
The other possibility is, and only because I think his skill set fits, I think this is also a Kenyon Sadiq, but I didn't want to keep banging that table because they have so many tight ends. But I think Kenyon Sadiq's skill set fits really well here.
True point. Very, very good point. All right, next team up on the board, the Eagles. Yes, the Eagles are on the board. And
sad.
It's where you get sad. Philadelphia added Rick Woolen while losing Jalen Phillips for a third-round pick to the Miami Dolphins. N'Kobe Dean and Reed Blankenship. Their draft needs are edge, offensive tackle, linebacker depth, safety depth, future offensive line planning. I think that last statement, they need future offensive line planning. If you look, they don't stay long in certain positions, right? You saw they went to a Super Bowl with arguably one of the best defensive lines ever. Everybody along that line had 7+ sacks or more throughout the season. And the very next offseason, right after the draft, they go and clean house. They throw everybody away, trade people away, and they go and redraft their defensive line. But this time around, I think it's going to be on the offensive side of the ball. I actually like Blake Miller here. Blake Miller is an option, as the offensive lineman. I think even if it's not Blake Miller, I do expect them to address the offensive line of that team. And I think it's going to end up, that's where it's going to end up falling. What do you guys think?
No, I think you guys, again, I think you had just said him here a couple teams ago. I think he falls to potentially, it sounds like this spot. I think it just makes sense. I don't know why I feel like he's a Sirianni guy, but Akeem Mesidor, edge rusher, Miami, I think makes a lot of sense for Philly here.
That's a good point. What do you think, Steve?
So this is why I get sad. So, and this is what I kind of alluded to earlier. Some of y'all know my best friend is an Eagles fan. I had a long conversation with him about the draft. I mean, I have a lot of conversations with him about draft, but I really had a long conversation with him about this draft. I initially thought, as you did, all the offensive line. They're starting to get near the tail end of some of their guys. Their left tackle is starting to get up there in age. Their right tackle, the names with me these days have been terrible. Please help. Their right tackle's name.
Isn't that Lane Johnson?
Yeah, Lane Johnson. He's actually been talking about retirement a few times. He's got a lot of mental challenges that he deals with like not like he's crazy or anything, but depression and stuff like that. It was really hard for him a lot of times, and he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. Me and him came to the decision that like taking offensive line, though it sounds great, he doesn't see their GM taking an offensive tackle to sit on the bench this year. So this is where I think one of my favorite safeties in this class goes. This is where I have Emmanuel McNeil Warren going, and I have to fight my best friend because he's going to take the guy from our hometown and one of my favorite players in this draft. I think it fits a need that they desperately need, losing one of their cornerstones in Reed Blankenship. They need safety help. They got Michael Carter, and from all I've heard, Michael Carter's talking about playing safety, but I still don't trust him. I think he'll end up being like a nickel safety playing in a 3 safety set that Fangio likes to use. So I like McNeil Warren here.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in it. What do you what did you say? Who did you say, Mystic? Who was your guy?
Mesidor.
Okay. I do agree with you. Initially I wanted to say McNeil Warren here, right? But, and here's the big but. I think there's a possibility the Eagles could jump up the draft board and pass a certain Norwegian group from Minnesota get into that 17th spot and go after a certain safety we mentioned before. That is a big possibility because I like Thieneman, to be honest, a little bit more for the Eagles, but it makes sense for them to go, for Vikings to go after him. You know what I mean? That's, I think, is the best option for them. But I would really like to see Thieneman as an Eagle, to be honest. What do you guys think about that?
That makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, but McNeil Warren is definitely a good pickup there. I definitely see what you're saying, Steve. According to stuff I've read, he could go as high as the Eagles, but people think that he's going to fall somewhere in between the Eagles pick and to the end of this first round. That's what I'm hearing a lot from people. So, I don't know, just my thoughts. Any other thoughts about the Eagles before we move on to Cleveland?
No, sir.
All right, quiet bunch today. The Cleveland Browns added Titus Howard, Zion Johnson, and Ellington Jenkins, with their departures were lighter, with Devin Bush among notable losses. Their biggest needs are left tackle, wide receiver, quarterback for long-term, linebacker depth, and defensive youth. Look, the one thing I know they've been searching for even into last year has been wide receiver. They've been looking for a wide receiver this entire offseason. There was talks about them trading for like Marvin Harrison and among other receivers that could possibly be there. Carnell Tate is possibly projected to go to Cleveland in the first round with their first pick. But let's say they go offensive tackle instead in Cleveland, right? I could see them taking whatever the best receiver they can get their hands on. Omar Cooper. It could even be a guy named Denzel Boston if he's here. It could be several other receivers that could be here. I like any of them, to be honest. But, I really, Cleveland was kind of hard for me to kind of find someone that I thought at this point. So I'm just gonna go with a blanket, whoever the top receiver remaining is at this point. Omar Cooper could definitely be that guy. Or they could go offensive lineman here as well, which I'm not really sure what offensive lineman would be left at this point that's still first round worthy. Maybe one of those Iowa boys finally come off the board. That's definitely an option as well. What do you guys think?
I think that you're stealing all the fun. No, I think you're kind of spot on with exactly the approach to the Cleveland situation here. My thing is like, do we see, based on what we're talking about, say they take that wide receiver, their first pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see all the offensive linemen come off the board that we believe to be the first round talent. Is this when we talked about maybe some potential reaches? Is this when you see maybe they try to get Caleb Lemieux, the other Utah guy?
Yeah, but I still kind of think that he's going to be gone prior to this pick, but it's very possible. That's definitely a possible pick for sure.
But Dunker makes sense. You're right. Dunker makes sense here. It's towards the end of the first, but again, okay, I got to remember this. And I'm not trying to add too many things to our thoughts, right? They pick in at 39 after this. So they have quite a few picks here in that top end where, we talk about Dunker, Logan Jones. I think you still might be able to get them at 39. I don't know if Steve thinks something different, but yeah, I think they have a lot of flexibility here, and I do like some of those guys for sure. Wide receiver again makes sense. I think a lot of those top end wide receivers are gone, but who knows? What if a Mekhi Lemon falls? I think that'd be really good for him.
Yeah. What do you got, Steve?
So I was on the same wavelength. I think this is where Denzel Boston comes off. That being said, you asked. So there are a couple guys, Blake Miller and Max Ionacre are two, I think, tackles that could jump up to the first round. There's been a lot of talk about them. Maybe even the Patriots taking one of them.
The Ionacre, that guy, is that the guy from Arizona State?
I believe so. He's the one who had the video of him and the Patriots head coach doing drills. Yeah, he's from Arizona. Blake Miller from Clemson. Lomu makes a lot of sense here, though. I do think he falls far enough that this could be a pick for him. I like all of those options, but I do. And speaking again with somebody who lives in Ohio, who's around enough radio for Cleveland, a friend of ours who comes in Mystic Space all the time, Coach Mo was talking about, and he made a good point that Ohio doesn't draft a whole lot of receivers early. They draft them kind of like Green Bay does in the middle rounds. So maybe they wait to take a offensive lineman or wait to take a wide receiver and they don't take one here and they do. I had them taking a defensive tackle early. that could be flipped. They could take an offensive lineman early and maybe take
Mhm.
a defensive lineman now, like the Caleb Banks or the Lee Hunters. Um, I think ultimately, kind of what you guys said, the Browns with this pick have a lot of variety, but also value. They can go in so many directions and fill a spot.
Very interesting. Yeah, they definitely, this is one of those picks that they could go in a lot of different ways. They could go receiver, they could go offensive line. There's, they can go different ways. They could trade down more and get more picks. To be honest, and one position we didn't really talk about, but people are thinking it. Quarterback could be picked here too. Um, there's a guy I know that they may have their eyes on, and I know people are saying, "Oh, but they got Shador. Don't they have this figured out?" It's Cleveland. They don't have it figured out. That's the problem. So very, very interesting what they could do. Then next team, Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears added Kobe Bryant, Devin Bush, Garrett Bradbury, while losing DJ Moore, Drew Dalman, and Kevin Beard, I guess is how you say it. Their draft needs are edge rusher, wide receiver, safety depth, offensive line help, and pass rotation. Obviously, guys like Zion Young could fall here. If let's say he falls, he might be a guy that you could fill in here. A guy that I really like, and this is the guy that I know this guy made. I apologize. This guy made Steve sad, but he's probably going to make Steve sad again. I actually think could go here to Chicago. If you don't know this, and I didn't know this, and I did some research. As of recently, there's been a lot of Toledo alumni that have either played or coached in Chicago for whatever reason. I think it's because it's pretty close. It's only like a 5-hour drive, to give you an example. So that's probably why. But I just think that McNeil Warren fits what they want to do with that defense. They need safety help. They want the physicality. Like I said, the way he attacks players, goes after players. I think that McNeil Warren makes a lot of sense for Chicago Bears. What do you think, Mystic?
Man, maybe a guy who can bring back the peanut punch, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
I think great move. If Warren isn't there, I'm not sure that I have talked about this guy yet. I think maybe you guys have said him, maybe on the last episode. I'm not entirely sure. Caden McDonald. I think Caden McDonald fits what they want to do on that defense. Interior run stuff. Really set up that interior defense for him. If you look at it, as obviously as a whole, the team, they got to be able to play better in the crunch, but they really got to concentrate on the defensive line and secondary to really shore up. You got a quarterback who's going to, put you in those moments, be able to do what you need to do. But, they finished with 35 sacks last year, which was tied for 28th in the league. You got to figure some things out there.
Definitely. What do you think, Steve?
So I was actually, me and Mystic agreed here. I think Kalen McDonald fills a need. Like they have Grady Jarrett, but he's starting to reach in the top end of that age. And they got Gavin Dexter. They got Neville Gallimore, who's already 30, Shamir Turner. Like their defensive room is really good. I think their defensive tackle room is good, but I like to get another young guy in there that I think brings a dominance to their defensive line. I was doing some thinking. Can anybody name a corner from Chicago?
Oh shoot. Well, it's been a hot minute, but not at the time at this point. So corner is definitely maybe are you thinking Hood maybe here?
So they have Jalen Johnson, who's decent. Jalen Jones, okay. Terrell Smith, Dante Manning, Kobe Bryant, who I like, and Kyler Gordon, who I like. And then they picked up Zav Razor, who, okay, cool. Yeah, I was thinking Hood here. Like, it's something I think they could use some more of the talented corners and maybe shore up that room a little more if they don't feel like defensive tackles as much of a need.
Very interesting. I like that take. Definitely. All right, next team up, the that team up north, who I hate to say their name, but the Buffalo Bills. So, Bills fans, if you're listening, this is for you. The Buffalo Bills added DJ Moore, Bradley Chubb, and then they lost David Edwards and Reggie Gilman and Cam Lewis. Look, I don't know what it is with the Bills. They always seem to get our seconds when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. They always get our seconds or whatever we let go. They ended up bringing there for some reason. Usually it's kicker, and I'm surprised they went and grabbed Bradley Chubb. DJ Moore, I like that move there. The reality is this: they need linebacker more than anything else. But with DL and wide receiver depth still in play, I think that the Buffalo Bills are going to do something that, as they usually do, not do what they should do. In years past, they needed a top flight wide receiver. They skipped out on it. In years past, they needed a top flight, we'll just say running back, and they skipped out on it, or top flight whatever, and they skipped out on it. They're going to skip out on going linebacker again. And I think they're going to take whatever the top wide receiver is. And a guy that I think that could fall there, I know we've mentioned his name several times throughout this process, and he could very well not be one of those top guys. He could fall down. But I think Casey Conception could be a name that they pick, whatever the top wide receiver is, but that's an example. What do you guys think?
I think you're right in the sense of maybe Casey falls, but man, I hate to say anything nice about this team. I really do. I can't stand the Buffalo Bills, but here I am trying to be a good biased analyst for the fans, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think they learn from their past mistakes, and I think they say, we need to do what's right. And I think Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech linebacker goes here.
Interesting. That if they do something right for once, that would be interesting. But I do think even adding DJ Moore, I think that they still could go wide receiver here. Steve, go ahead and hold it down for me. I got to take this phone call real quick.
Yeah. I had a funny one for this, and only because it's Buffalo. Could you imagine if they take another tight end here? If somehow Sadiq falls and they just run 3 tight ends? Because good God, that would be the most hilarious situation. However, I do think they learn from their mistakes, but they still do the Buffalo thing and reach. I think they go and get Chris Brazzell. I think he fits kind of what Josh Allen needs. Big body, speed receiver, pretty consistent hands. I do think he's low enough in the second round that Buffalo can talk themselves into taking him. I also kind of had I do understand they signed Bradley Chubb, but Bradley Chubb is 30 years old. I think TJ Parker here makes a lot of sense. Adding pass rush depth to a room that's kind of been one of their biggest issues, in my opinion, getting a consistent pass rush. Joey Bosa, I believe, is gone now, if I remember correctly. I think he was only there for the 1 year. I could be wrong, but I do not see him on. Yeah, so yeah, he's gone. So they, I do think they need edge, but I do think they take wide receiver. Though, again, this is Buffalo, as I said. I would not be surprised if they just say screw it and go get another tight end, because that seems to be what Buffalo loves to do. Screw it, let's get another tight end.
Yeah, I could see that happening. They could go another tight end, but I just at this point I think they could double down on wide receiver right? That was the biggest issue. They had tight ends, but not really the wide receivers they needed to go along with that running game. I think they need something to complement the running game, not just a bunch of tight ends. That's why I'm going wide receiver.
Well, that's why I went wide receiver too. What do you think about them going after Chris Brazzell?
That's an option. Definitely an option. Any other final thoughts, Mystic?
No, I'm good.
Good. We're getting down here. We're down to the last 6. Next up, and I'm surprised you didn't invite your brother up here. The 49ers. The 49ers are on the board. San Francisco added Mike Evans, right? That's a huge pickup. Dre Greenlaw, while losing Bryce Huff, Jordan Elliott, and Sky Moore. The draft needs are edge, offensive line, safety, defensive line depth, and future tackle planning. Essentially, they need some future offensive linemen. Speaking of McNeil Warren, he could go here too. If he's still on the board, 49ers, I think, is a good spot for him, as they do need safety help. They do need edge. TJ Parker is a name that you could really look at being for them right here. If not TJ Parker, the fact that they need an offensive lineman, again, I'm going to note whatever the best offensive linemen are on the board. If it happens to be one of those Iowa boys, which I'm going to mention all show long, this would be a good option. But I think TJ Parker is the pick here, to be honest. What do you guys think?
Well, we lost Mystic, so
He went to go get his brother, I think.
I guess I'll go, and then I can reiterate it for him when I get back, because I thought.
Well,
this
he's
would be
here.
fun.
He's here.
Good Lord. I
okay.
keep hitting the wrong button.
He got excited because I mentioned Iowa. That's what happened.
No, I'm just kidding. It's I think as much as this 49er team is in a really good spot, they have a really good team built. You got Brock Purdy, you got some, you brought in Mike Evans, you went and got, I believe, I saw Christian Kirk. They got they brought in some people, right? They got some things taken care of. This Trent Williams situation, I think, really needs to be watched closely, because I think that is going to dictate how they move. This new contract with Trent Williams and trying to get him re-signed is really kind of putting them in a weird spot. I also know that they need their edge rusher presence, because when Nick Bosa and them weren't there, they had a league low 20 sacks last year. That's just gross. So I guess it wouldn't surprise me here if they took an offensive lineman. Again, I've said his name, not fond of him. It wouldn't surprise me if Caden Proctor fell here. Again, edge rusher. Maybe this is like a Zion Young spot. There's a couple good, I think, pieces that they could get here, but again, I think it really a lot dictates on what's going on with Trent Williams.
So, you mentioned an Iowa boy, and this is the one that I thought was funny. I have a guy who, if I don't remember the full series of events, but he was supposed to be an Iowa boy, or was an Iowa boy, and went running for the hills to Alabama. I think Caden Proctor fits exactly what San Francisco needs, with the Trent Williams stuff going a little crazy. I still don't love their right tackle. I think Caden Proctor to the Niners makes a lot of sense. And then, Mystic can dump his Iowa stuff on his brother.
It definitely makes a lot of sense. I would agree. Very interesting. It'll be very interesting what they do with the 49ers. Texans are on the board now, right? Texans, they have, is it me or Texans is one of those teams that they have so much athletic, athletes on their team. They have really good receivers and good running back, even a quarterback, and they just can't get it done, right? I don't know if it's the offensive line or it's the defense. I don't know whose fault it is, But I think like a team that has all these weapons, what are you going to do to, elevate your game? And for me, when you look at the Texans, and let me just tell you what they've added over the past season. Off season, they've added Brandon Smith, David Montgomery, and Reed Blankenship while losing Titus Howard. Their draft needs are offensive line, defensive tackle, corner depth, pass rush rotation, and long-term trench talent. Look, they added a whole bunch of stuff on the offensive line. I still don't know if it's enough, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this: trenches, 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 baby trenches. That's what it is. And if any team, needs a defensive tackle, I think Caden McDonald makes complete sense here. You go get the best defensive tackle you can get, and I think he would definitely fill the gap in the middle of that defensive line. He's going to stop the run. They're in a division that the run is very heavy, and you want to bring pressure on the quarterbacks in that division, and I think he can definitely do that. Another name to watch out for, if it's not Caden McDonald, another name to look at is Lee Hunter. Lee Hunter is another name to look for. What do you guys think?
I like that Lee Hunter move for sure. Maybe a hot take here. Maybe a hot take in the sense of maybe they go in a different area that maybe people don't necessarily think is a 100% need, but definitely something that I think needs to be filled on their offense. I think this is an Eli Stowers at a Vanderbilt spot. I think that would be huge for CJ.
That would be interesting. The tight end? That's what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they have who's the tight end we mentioned earlier that they have,
Dalton
Steve?
Schultz.
They have Dalton Schultz. They would be interesting. I that would be something to think about, to be honest. What's your take, Steve?
So I spent a long time thinking about this because tight end was actually something I thought about. They signed Foster Moreau. They have Belvin Jordan, Dalton Schultz, but a lot of those guys are kind of older dudes or injury prone guys. Then I was thinking offensive line, but then they went and added Wyatt Teller, Evan Brown. They kind of addressed some of the offensive line stuff. And I was like, okay, well, what about defense? They went and signed Logan Hall from the Bucks. They still got Sheldon Rankins and Tommy Toagai, Keontae Hamilton, Junior Tafuna. They have a decent interior defensive line. And then I was looking at their linebacker room. Henry Tutuo, Aziz Al-Zawahiri, and EJ Speed. And then just kind of bodies. Jake Henson, Jake Hamill, Jamal Hill. I kind of like CJ Allen coming to Houston, adding some depth to the linebacker room that is very thin for them right now, giving them even more ability to get some athleticism on that line. I think he makes a lot of sense here for the Texans.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. So I could definitely see that happening. For sure. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next team?
I do
No.
want to throw out a hot take. A hot take. I don't know that he falls this far, but I think it'd be real interesting if a Jeremiah Love fell to Houston. That's a need for them for sure.
He would never fall this far. I think he's just too good that he's going to end up being top 15, to be honest.
I agree. That's why I said hot take.
Oh, yeah.
They also went and got, like you said, the running back from the Lions. So I think they're
Montgomery.
I do think they might take like a Katron Allen later or something, but that would be crazy. Jeremiah falling this far. Just a I don't want to say hot take because it's really not. Just because of who their head coach is, I don't think edge is ever out of the conversation. Only because I believe Darnell Hunter's 33 now. Or 32. He's starting to get a little older. So I do think edge Zion Young, I think, could come here and be kind of an interesting kind of option as a bigger defensive end. But I don't think they'll go that way, but it's just because of their head coach, I think it's always an option.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. All right, next team, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are on the board. Biggest arrivals: Kenneth Walker, Aloha Gilman, Kyrus Atunga. Biggest exits were Trent McDuffie, Leo Chanel, and Brian Cook. Draft needs are corner, edge. Expected first round pick possibly could be Mansour Delane. I know I mentioned that earlier. It could even be Jermond McCoy, to be honest. It can go a couple different ways with that first pick that they have earlier on. But if, let's say, they go corner in that first pick, I expect the next pick to address their edge position. A guy I like for them is Malachi Lawrence. I think he would be good. They could also go wide receiver. They people say they need a receiver. I've seen people say stuff about Conception being an option for them down here if he falls. I think it's really going to be all dependent on what they do with that first pick. But I just think that Lawrence makes sense for them. What do you guys think?
I'm pretty sure I had them taking a wide receiver early. I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense to actually give, Patrick Mahomes someone reliable to throw the damn ball to, like, over and over. As much as I can't stand the guy, but you give this dude a whole bunch of nobodies to throw the ball to besides Travis Kelce all the time. It's just insane to me. So I'm like, no, we're going wide receiver at the first one, and they went and got rid of old Mr. False Start himself. Mr. I can't, block unless I jump, a whole yard off sides. I think Blake Miller at a Clemson right tackle here makes sense. It's a long-term fix at the right tackle position and gives Mahomes something to not have to worry about.
Okay. What do you think, Steve?
So this is another I spent a long time. This back end stuff is kind of killing me because it's like, man, there are guys I liked earlier for them, and who falls, who doesn't fall this far. I think this is where Casey Conception goes. It would be funny, and it wasn't that I just realized that Casey going to Casey. Yeah, but if you look at his skill set, I think he matches up well with the two receivers that they have. They have the speed kid who ran the 4.21, and then they have the kid who's always in trouble. I think getting Mahomes some more weapons would be nice. I also contented them taking, or I also kind of thought about them taking in defensive end here. I think that also makes a lot of sense, but I think Conception goes really well here for Kansas City.
Makes complete sense. That's what a lot of people had said, that they could see them taking advantage of Conception here at this point. There's some other players that I think that fits Kansas City, but they also fit the very next team on the board. Are there any other thoughts on Kansas City?
Okay, so I got one more hot take, just because I think he fits Spagnola's defense very well. Bud Clark. I think Bud Clark fits that defense very well.
What position does he play?
Safety at a TCU.
Okay, I'll have to check him out. That was somebody I hadn't looked at, so I will definitely check him out. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. Right, we already talked about who they have brought in. They brought in Malik Willis, Joshua Uche, Jalen Tolbert, but lost Tua Tagovailoa. Jalen Waddle, in my opinion, is the biggest loss, and Bradley Chubb. Their draft needs are wide receiver, corner, offensive line, edge depth, and overall defensive speed. This is what I'm going to say. I do think that if we don't go corner, let's say Mansour Delane or Jermond McCoy, with that number 11 pick. Let's say we don't do that and we go wide receiver, which I would be okay with quite a few different people, starting with Tyson or Jordan Tyson and or Denzel Boston is another name I really like. There's a couple names there I really like. Let's say we did that. Then we have to address corner here at 30. And there's a guy that we mentioned earlier that didn't have the best pro day, right? But it makes sense. It to me, I think it definitely makes sense on what they would do. A guy named Avian Terrell makes sense here. The Dolphins acquired the pick, losing Jalen Waddle. You go get yourself a guy who plays bigger than a 5'11" size because he's the younger brother of AJ Terrell. I think Terrell makes sense. They could use a replay. They need to fill that corner position badly because I think they're hurting really bad there. You lost Kader Kohu among all your other corners that we really just signed on one-year wonders. I think you really have to address the position. So it really depends what they do with that first pick. If they address the corner position with that first pick, then I could see them going safety or wide receiver at 30. But I'm going to say they addressed wide receiver early and they ended up going corner with number 30. What do you guys think?
Man. So I've been having a lot of fun with this whole situation. And I kind of dealt with some things here when I was going through some mocks and such. And I've had some situations where I have us taking offensive lines at 11, offensive linemen at 11, right? Spencer Panu, things of that sort. I've had some situations where I've seen Peter Woods fall this far, and I'm absolutely running with that card for Peter Woods here. Another one, this might be, maybe it's a little too, rich for some, maybe too soon. But to your point, Ollie, cornerback, and maybe not the guy who had the bad pro day, but maybe a guy who just won a national championship, D'Angelo Pons.
D'Angelo Pons. Interesting. What do you think, Steve?
So I've had a lot of thoughts. You know this. We've talked about a lot of guys. I thought corner, and then I saw the board falling, and I was like, do I really want to take Keontae Scott? I don't know if I'm ready for a slot corner yet. Then I thought Avion Terrell. Again, I don't know if I want a slot corner yet. And then I was thinking, oh, guess who's still on the board?
Sorry about that. Who's on the board?
Our Iowa tackle is still sitting on the board.
You don't say.
So we're going to Iowa, boys. We're finally addressing the offensive line, is what you're telling me.
I took Jordan Tyson, and this might make some people upset. I took Jordan Tyson at 11. I like us staying on the offensive line with the way the board is fallen and taking Jennings Dunker, who can fill guard or tackle. The need on this offense.
Sorry.
Interesting enough, that I think it was either Sully or the head coach of Miami said in a recent interview that they have some questions at guards. Still, and they have the guard, one side of the guard figured out. It's the other side they don't. That could be a position we do go and address earlier than expected because of that. And if at 30 it makes sense, I don't want to take guard that high, and I'll be more comfortable taking it at 30 than at 11.
And I think with Austin Jackson's injury, sorry, mistake, but with Austin Jackson's history of injury, having a guy who has the ability to flex between tackle and guard, I think fits very well. And what is they've always said since the day both of them got in the building, we want to build this inside out.
It's true.
That's got to be some of the greatest takes I've ever heard, Steve. No. I've been waiting for this moment. It's been It would be a great day. It would be a great day to see the Dolphins take a lineman who, yeah, cool, call me a homer, whatever, if you will. A lineman that comes from a school that has him pro ready. They don't mess around with their linemen, and if you look at the linemen around the league, some of the highest paid linemen in football come from that university. So I am hard pressed to say that, well, I'm VC confident, if you will, that Jennings Dunker will be that guy at the next level.
VC company. You guys are funny, man. Very, very funny. Another name that you could look at here. Who's the Penn State guard that everyone talks about? Vega? Yeah. If Vega falls for whatever reason, I wouldn't mind taking Vega here at 30 either.
That'd be awesome.
That would be
If
awesome.
Vega is available at 30 and they don't mow down old people to get to them, I'm fighting them.
That's kind of how I feel about it, though.
I feel about Peter Woods, though. I swear, like, I'm pushing everybody over if Peter Woods is there at 30. Like, I'm not even questioning it.
Yeah.
I do have a wild, like, again, it may be people might not like it and call it a stretch, but I also wouldn't hate taking, where'd it go? I just had the name, sorry. So I don't mess up his name. Igbinosin here, the corner from Ohio State.
Ooh, first round is kind of rich for my blood for him. I think he's more of a set day two guy. A solid day two guy, to be honest. But I could see it. I could see
for 30 for me it's 30, right? Your 2 picks out of the day two.
You might, it's not going to hurt too much. I get what you're saying.
And
Definitely.
a lot of the people that we like are gone. Like, I think Colton Hood's gone. He was my last, like, kind of true number one or true first round. I won't say no one. True first round corners. Like, maybe you like Pawns here. Maybe you like I can't. For me, I can't take a slot only corner in the first round. I can't do it, and I don't think Igbinosin is a slot only corner. I do think he can fill the boundary.
He's a boundary guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, maybe you take Keith Abney from Arizona. I don't like Pons as his size as a boundary. I get he plays bigger, but I think Igbinosin showed a lot during the college playoffs for me. You did not see that man getting picked on. That is not who they were throwing at. For me, I could see that, but that's, I think, a little bit of a reach for corner. But just because of how the board fell, that's why I brought it up.
Definitely, I could see that definitely happening. At pick 30, the Miami Dolphins could go in several different directions. We still don't even know what they're doing with linebacker. Linebacker might be a position that we have to address depending on how they go. I think that first pick at 11 is going to set the tone for them on what they do, though. So we will definitely see. The New England Patriots are next. Kevin Beard, they lost Kevin Beard, they added Kevin Beard. They added Romeo Dubes, Draymond Jones. They lost Stephon Diggs, Clavon Chasen, and Jalen Hawkins. Their draft needs are offensive tackle, edge rusher, wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line depth. I'm going to go ahead and say my projection is they're going to draft an offensive tackle, maybe Max Ihinker out of Arizona State, I think is who he plays for. But I'm going to hold my wild card because I have a real wild card here that they could possibly do because of something I read in the news, which I'm going to hold off to bring up here in a moment. Go ahead, Mystic. What do you think of Ihinker as the pick possibly?
Yeah, I like that. I do want to be quick and say the same thing about this team as the Bills. I don't really anything good to come for them. I have nothing good for the Patriots, but here I am being a nice guy, right? I like that pick. I also like, was it Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville?
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes a lot of sense here, too. Give Drake May another weapon.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, and I was asking Crypto if he needs a bag of concrete over here talking about a QB at 11. Uh, Patriots. It's such a tough thing because I was originally thinking a lot of wide receiver for them, but the receivers, they're either stretching for one or they're just not there. Um, I think Iron Anchor makes a lot of sense. I think that video uh of Vrabel and Iron Anchor doing that little battle test, uh I think the Patriots kind of showed a little bit of their hand there. I think he likes him a lot, and it makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense for them. They need tackle help. Iron Anchor makes a lot of sense for an offense that needs offensive line help desperately.
Absolutely. I definitely think they need offensive line help. But I do think what Mystic was saying, with they tried to trade for AJ Brown, right? They've been looking for that wide receiver. They settled for Stephon Diggs last season. They got to the Super Bowl. Imagine what they can do with an AJ Brown style receiver. Is Bell out of Louisville that guy? That's a good question. But that wasn't my hot take. My hot take for the Patriots, I know they drafted Trevion Henderson last season, right? And Trevion Henderson was in the news, and I don't even know the full story behind it. But there's these rumors going around that he made some comments in support of a player that's taken a lot of heat, a basketball player that's taken a lot of heat because of some comments that he made, right? Do they draft a running back here?
Dang.
And running back, the guy I'm thinking of, the guy out of Arkansas. And I got to pull up his name because for whatever reason, I was sitting here trying to find him real quick. But he's somebody I've been thinking about.
Mike Washington.
Yes, Mike Washington. Could they draft a Mike Washington running back here?
I knew. I don't ask me how I knew, but I knew you were gonna make that comment. Like I had a feeling you like I looked at the Patriots, I was like, Ollie's gonna take a running back here. And then I was like, there's no way. And I went and looked at the running backs. I was like, they have a running back room. Nope, Ollie's gonna do it.
And I wasn't initially, bro. Originally, I was gonna go, oh, their coach. Their coach loves his trench players, offensive linemen. That's where I think they're gonna go. That makes sense, right? That's my projection for them is take an offensive lineman. But seeing Trevion Henderson's name being thrown in the mud in the news doesn't have me feeling very well. And I don't know. This would be one of those wild picks at 30. It's pretty much a second round pick. You know what I mean? Mike Washington, he's a hell of a running back in my opinion. So that's someone to consider, to be honest. But it was a hot, wild take. That's all this was. What's up, Lou? How you doing? What? Hold on. What did he say?
He wants to know how that VC box is. He's trying
Oh,
to
my
get
VC box. Oh, bro. I'm gonna call up VC and try to become what do they call it? One of those vendors for them. Yeah, reps. Because shit, that stuff is like next level. It's really good. It was super easy to install. All the apps I'd want installed by itself. To be honest, super high def quality, way better. Even the remote, dude. You can tell the quality of something by holding the remote to it, right? This thing is like it has some weight to it, and it actually, you can tell it's a good product, solid. So I'm glad I made the switch. The only thing that sucks, it doesn't. Okay, I take that back. Nothing sucks about it. It's definitely one of the best investments I made. Just some things I had to like learn how to do, and it took a little bit, but I figured it out. So now that I know it, it's super easy. It's like super easy. That was my only feedback I could say about it. But everything else is like super easy. It's way better product. Changing channels doesn't take forever. It's real good.
I do want to just say because we brought up the trade. If the New England Patriots did trade for AJ Brown, it would cost them this pick, and I think that's what's holding it up. I think they're trying to get away from sending this pick. The other thing I heard is they're waiting till after June 1st because the cap hit. They don't take a cap hit. I believe they gain money by trading AJ Brown post June 1st. That was part of the conversations I had with my buddy about, if they take a wide receiver
Uh-huh.
at I think it's 16. I think Philly has, or I forget which number it is. But if they take a wide receiver at whatever their first pick is, it's a telltale sign that they're trading AJ Brown. I think if they trade AJ Brown, they go wide receiver here, and I would not be surprised if they take Chris Bell. I think he fits to the opposite side of uh their wide receiver from Alabama.
Smith.
Like, yeah, Devontae Smith.
Mhm.
I think that's a perfect fit for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think if Eagles end up making that trade, I definitely think they take a wide receiver. Bell makes complete sense. Um, and it would make complete sense why, if that happens, why my running back take, obviously it doesn't happen, but my the running back I selected, I think will be the next pick off the board here. Because we're going to finish up the show with Seattle. Seattle biggest rival was Emmanuel Wilson, Rodney Thomas, and Noah Igbenogany. Yes, Noah Igbenogany. Yes, you know who I'm talking about. Their biggest exit, their top running back, in my opinion, Kenneth Walker, Kobe Bryant, and Rick Woolen were some of their losses. Draft needs are running back, corner, and safety help. Do they really need safety help even after getting their guy last draft? I question that, but I'm going to go with running back here. There's a couple names I like. I'm just going to go ahead and take. Let's say that trade happens. Mike Washington makes complete sense here for Seattle. I would take Mike Washington. There's also another running back, but I'm going to hold off and see if you guys pick them, or I'll mention him on the tail end. What do you think, Mystic? What do you think is going to happen here?
What do you steal all it takes, guys? We need to gulag him or something. No, I'm just kidding. I agreed. I actually was waiting for this. I think Mike Washington Jr. makes a hell of a lot of sense here. I also like Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, bell cow style back, fits that offense. They don't go running back though. I think this makes a hell of a lot of sense for Mike McDonald's physical coverage. What he likes to do, he loves high upside athletes. If he can get some fast dudes at corner, he will. I think Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. That dude's fast as hell, and he fits exactly what Mike likes to do for his defense.
Okay, what do you think, Steve?
I was actually on the same wavelength. I originally thought Avion Terrell here at nickel. I think that would have been a great fit for that defense, but with the hamstring injury, could you imagine Keontae Scott and the Baltimore Ravens defense?
That would be very, very interesting.
Speed, hits like a truck. I think Mike McDonald would fall in love with him.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That's definitely a pick to watch. My wild card, and not really a wild card, to be honest, because it makes sense. If they don't go Washington, who's my favorite running back in this draft, I know people are like, you don't like Jeremiah Love? Why? What's wrong with Jeremiah Love? Nothing's wrong with Jeremiah Love. It's just I like Mike Washington better for the style of running back I like. Yeah, I don't want to say he's overrated. If you look at who he played, and I guess maybe he is overrated. Maybe you're right. But this guy knows Jeremiah Love a lot. If not, it could be his roommate for all we know. I think Jadarian Price might be a great option here for Seattle, to be honest. You look at Jadarian Price, runs with nasty physicality through contact, consistently churching through arm tackles, shows exceptional patience, displays elite contact balance and leg drive. This guy's like Kenneth Walker, but cheaper. to be 100% honest. He has natural hands out of the backfield so he can catch. It has decent speed. I like Jadarian Price at 32 with Seattle. What do you guys think?
I like it. It makes a lot of sense.
Just saying. What do you think, Steve?
I like it. I have mine's still on the other side of the ball from you. I think our Mason Thomas makes a lot of sense here. Speed rusher, kind of a Chop Robinson-esque type smaller edge rusher, kind of what Weaver did here. It's the same defense. I think they can only get more because again they were blitzing safeties because in corners because like not that their edge rush wasn't good, it's just that they like to be multiple that way. I think adding another edge rusher to that room, that's it. Like again, Seattle has good edge rushers, but they can always get better. And that like I don't think they have a true like great edge rusher between Leonard Williams, who's really good, right? He's really good. But like Drake Thomas is kind of just okay. I think they could use some depth and then a true pass rusher from the edge.
Hot take. You made me think about this, right? You said they have a Baltimore Ravens style defense in Seattle, right? That's what they're running.
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't there a certain edge rusher that got traded to the Ravens only to be sent back because of some nonsense because they wanted to see who they could get the better deal? Could they trade their first round pick to the Raiders for Max Crosby?
I mean, it's possible. I don't know if anybody's going to trade for Max now, but listen, you want to win another Super Bowl, that's the kind of move you make.
Yeah, that's a Super Bowl move, to be honest. Look, Max Crosby. First of all, why do you think people don't want to trade for Max Crosby? Because they bought the bullshit that happened in his physical, which ended up, to be honest, I think it's pretty much confirmed that it wasn't true. And really, they were just trying to see which deal they could get that was a better deal.
Well, no, it was true in the fact that he's coming off a knee surgery. I think the price is high for a north of 30 pass rusher who's making, I believe, position resetting money. The price is that's a first round. What did they give? I think it was a first and a fifth or something. I think it might have just been a first, but like that's a big price to pay. Now it makes sense for someone like Seattle who's already won a Super Bowl and trying to go back for a second. But for a lot of teams, that's a big price to pay to take on that much cap, to give away the first round pick, and a guy who's coming off a major knee surgery at 30 plus years old.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I definitely hear what you're saying. It's just a wild take, bro. Just a wild take. I was thinking about it. You were saying Baltimore Ravens, and the biggest thing in the news right now is the fact that they bulked on a trade for Max Crosby, who I thought would have been great in their defense, to be honest. But
can I throw you another kind of crazy one just before we shut down?
Sure.
Could you imagine, and this goes to a conversation I was kind of having in the space earlier today. There's been a lot of talk about Philly moving on from Jalen Carter. He's not lived up to the draft pick, in my opinion. He got hurt last year, but he's still a good player. But they paid Jordan Davis. And there's been a lot of conversation on if they can afford to pay Jalen Carter, who's still got a fifth-year option. Could Philly trade to get to Seattle Jalen Carter for their first-round pick?
Yeah, very. Those are some thoughts. Definitely. Everybody hit the like button. Look, the bottom line comes down to the fact that this draft is going to be freaking wild. There could be trades up or down that could very well happen, especially later in the draft. For me, the consensus top 10 picks, to be honest, I think are kind of set in stone. Maybe not necessarily the order exactly, but I think the players definitely set. Those are pretty much set in stone. The rest of the draft, it's all speculation. We're just analyzing different players, different stuff that can fit. It'll be really interesting. I want to know, like, what team is going to make that crazy pick or overreach before anybody else. That's what I want to know. Who's going to do it first? What do you guys think? What do you guys think the bottom line is?
Man, I'm just ready for it to be here. I think I'm kind of getting on the giddy side of things here for this draft. I'm almost to the point where I don't want to say tired, but I'm overseeing the mocks, and I'm ready to see where some of these guys fall. I'm ready to see if there's going to be some trades made, some moves. We're going to have, like again, you guys talking about Max Crosby. Again, I've said it in spaces. Maybe we see a Brian Thomas Jr. move. Like there's AJ Brown. There's just so many speculation possibilities in this draft. I'm ready for it. It's just going to add into the new season.
Absolutely. I think it's going to add in. What do you think, Steve?
My bottom line is we know, again, this wasn't a design to be a mock draft. I know in some ways we kind of were calling it and making it look like a mock draft. Like, there's going to be
a mock draft. I'm not finalized on any of these players. I just kind of wanted to analyze the different teams. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is more of like, this is who we like here and there. Like, this was not meant to be a mock, and that's what I was getting at, right? Like,
yeah,
and I say that because there's no trades. We talked about a couple of them and possibilities of them. Much like last year with Jacksonville and the Browns, nobody thought the Browns were totally going to move out of that spot. A lot of people were on the Browns taking Travis Hunter. Them moving out of that spot threw a monkey wrench into a lot of things. Like, there's gonna be a big trade. There is one every single year. I think a lot of Dolphin fans are hoping it's Miami moving out of 11 to get some more draft picks for next year. So we'll see what happens with that. But there's going to be a big move. I still think, even though, and I get called crazy for it, I'm still don't know if I'm sold on the Raiders 100% taking Mendoza. I know people don't want to really pay attention to that, but I still think there's a possibility they just crazy shit happens and they just do some weird shit where the Jets end up with Mendoza and then move to taking a quarterback next year. I don't know. It's the stuff in the top of my head. Something
look
crazy.
who's in the chat. Decided to make the show right as we're closing up shop.
Yeah, he was in here earlier.
Oh, was he? Oh, I didn't see him earlier. Sorry. Salute to you, sir. Salute to you.
Yeah, he's here for a little bit.
But bottom line, shit's gonna get crazy. So get ready. We got 3 weeks. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, definitely. We got 3 weeks. It's going to be amazingly fun. There's going to be so much we have planned out. I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a certain network around here that the Game Time Grind is actually going to take over. And I mean take over a certain network. Just stay tuned. It's coming. But in addition to that, we have some shows lined up. We're going to talk about sleepers. Sleepers that you're not expecting that I think could be very productive in this draft. In addition, we'll analyze as we get closer to the draft. We'll analyze some other certain position groups or highlight some players that we're going to talk about. The week of the draft, that Tuesday, I do want to do an actual Game Time Grind mock draft, like actual mock draft. We will all decide the players together in agreements. Going throughout all 32 teams. And we'll even put a timer on it so we're not stuck here all night because you know how that can go. And then in addition, we'll we'll be live for the first, second day, and the third day of the draft here on the Game Time Grind, as well as the TFTG network. So definitely stay tuned. I cannot wait. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're brand new. If you're on the Twitter side watching from Twitter, come over to YouTube. Come follow us at 4th and 10U. We're on the road to 100. We're on the road to 100 followers. Once we get to 100, we're going to have giveaways. For every 100 we get to, we're going to have giveaways. And some of the giveaways, which hopefully I'm going to be having a friend of mine come on the show here in the next couple of weeks, maybe the week of the draft. And he's going to be announcing some of those giveaways, which are going to be really big. So definitely stay tuned. With that, everyone, have a great night, and we'll see you on the next show.